Hello, everyone. In this talk, I want to delve more deeply into what's happening in the Aquarian realm over the next few months. Michelle and I spoke recently about later this month, Pluto and the Sun ingressing into Aquarius, Uranus stationing direct. But that's just beginning of a process that's quite radical and profound over the next few months. So we're going to go through that and I'll share my insights as I move along. The first thing I want to show is here's this Pluto Sun. They come to join each other and they actually form a conjunction at 29 degrees, 59 minutes of Capricorn. This is the last degree and last minute. There's 60 minutes in a degree of Capricorn. You couldn't get more culminative than that. So that's interesting. They're joining just before later that day, they both move into Aquarius a week before Uranus moves direct. So it's sort of like this very strong last hurrah in Capricorn. But there's something else. Pluto entered Capricorn 2008, 2009 or so. Since then, if my calculations are correct, Pluto and the Sun have joined each other 16 times. This will be the last time that Pluto and the Sun will join each other. It will never happen again. Pluto will dip back into Capricorn later this year, but not before the Sun gets there. Before the Sun gets there, rather. So this is the last time we're having the culmination of Pluto and the Sun in Capricorn. And this is significant because, yes, there's going to be a little more Capricorn later this year, but it's hardly the same. In many ways, this to me is more so the official beginning of Pluto in Aquarius. Because when the Sun is no longer involved, it's not being centralized. Right? It's still a transit, it's happening. But when the Sun, let's say it this way, when the Sun is with an outer planet, that becomes the central focus. That's where we're actualizing and integrating that evolutionary function within our creative purpose. The movement of the Sun through the zodiac, through the year, corresponds to where life is happening, where we're actualizing our own creative essence and becoming focused towards creation, towards meaning, towards purpose, towards life. It's where we're cultivating our creative agency and living and giving and sharing and engaging as a fully engaged human being. The Sun makes it real. The Sun gives it life. The Sun gives it chi. So Pluto will later this year regress into a Capricorn for a little bit, but its symbology is not as significant as it would be had it been joined by the Sun, right? This says this is your last time being energized by that solar energy. I mean, there'll be squares, there'll be an opposition, which will be really powerful next year. Mars will be involved. Still a lot of strong solar energy. But this is the last conjunction. This is the last time Pluto gets charged by the Sun. What this says to me is this is the final charging, the final energizing of Pluto in Capricorn. And the transits are very clear. We have Pluto meeting the Sun in Capricorn and then a very strong movement towards Uranus and Aquarius, especially over the next few months. And so there are two things that I want to say, and then I'll show you the transits over the next few months. One, this brings a heightened point of reflection relative to the structural realities that we've created and what is and what isn't working. Notice that Mars is there too. Mars is the leading edge of our own evolutionary growth. There's probably another video there for me to speak to. Wherever Mars is where there's choices, decisions to make. But it's balsamic to Pluto. It's also moving. Mars will join Pluto when it's in Capricorn. So there's a completion, again, even with Mars, happening in Capricorn. It can feel like there's a lot of planning, decision-making, concrete, practical things to be taken into consideration. But the core internal reflection in Capricorn is incredibly reflective. The gem and the beauty of Capricorn is this quality of introspection, because it's always about tuning into the structural reality of our life and being willing and sort of brave enough to ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Is this working? Is this really what I want? Is this where I want to go? Is this taking me where I want to go? What fundamental conditioning and assumptions and constructs within my own mind need to change in order for life to be better, even if it's so different than everything I thought it should be. We face our own guilt, our fear, our shame, our judgment, in order to ultimately face the conditioning that isn't working for ourselves and for others. So there's a lot of deep reflection that I would say is happening now at the time of this video in Capricorn season. What choices am I making long term, and where is that taking me long term? And there's the sense that this deep introspection and reflection is taking us, and this is the second piece, to a radically new phase of experience. Meaning there's life as it wants to unfold, regardless of our story and our conditioning and our ideas of what we are and where we're going. What I'll say to this, and let's just visually look at this, boom, 1 day later. Here we're in Aquarius. Let's actually just give us 7 days later, right? Uranus is direct. We have all this energy in Aquarius. This feels more Aquarian. If I wanted to make it even more Aquarian, I'd take us into February and I'd put Mars in Aquarius, but this is good enough. The unfolding of life and where everything is going is just beyond the narrowness of thinking and mind that we're familiar with. The work that we do to unravel our own conditioning, to face our fears, to look at the things that are hard to look at right now. We don't have to necessarily take responsibility for the sudden insights and revelations and changes in our environment that will come on its own. Aquarian energy operates really in 2 ways, but it's the same. Sudden realizations that emerge from within that enables us to simply see and make completely new choices with no context to the past. Or seemingly external events that will just shake us up, traumatizing, painful, difficult, or not, but that will move our life forward in completely new ways. Both are sudden, both are unplanned. You don't plan for a realization. You don't plan for a liberating insight. You don't plan to suddenly have a perceptual shift to see everything differently. The nature of Aquarian Uranus energy is more so the shedding of the known, the shedding of the past, and the surprising realization of what's already true. And that's why, inventions or technologies are associated with this archetype, because it comes from a free mind that's willing to rethink the old associations. But what's interesting is clear thought, we never arrive at it by thinking and going over the same details. It's an interesting sort of Zen koan. Clear thought happens on its own, and I don't even know who the thinker is. Clear thought happens when the old non-clear thoughts are moved a little further away into the place of witness, right? Instead of just thinking them habitually, we notice them. There's a very interesting teaching in A Course in Miracles that says, my thoughts are images that I have created. And I think that's fascinating to just take a moment and contemplate that. The thoughts we think we're thinking, which is also a statement in the Course, we think we're thinking them, which is amazing, are images. But we're not aware of them, but they're just projections of images. We think we're thinking, but we're more so in a trance, playing out some kind of visualization or story in our own mind, as if we're dreaming, right? There are characters, there are places, there are names. We're conceiving of things in our own mind. And we think that we're thinking, but we're just in a state of dissociation. And I think there is a distinction between the projections of thoughts that we're familiar with, that we usually think we're thinking, and true, clear thinking. The latter is more coming into harmony, into resonance with the intelligence of creation itself. I often say with Aquarius that life doesn't have any contradictory thoughts. There are no conflicting thoughts in the mind of God. The truth of life itself is inherently about resonance and harmony, and thus togetherness. Thus it's a friendly universe. Thoughts that resonate with that will have the quality of trust, will have the quality of being helpful, of being inclusive by its very nature. We're not going to think in a way of adversity. We're not going to be thinking in competition. Our true thoughts will be harmonious, will be actually loving and appreciative and helpful by their very nature. I think it's a really beautiful thing to think about, the distinction between the projections of thoughts we think we're thinking and true thoughts. And so I say all of this because there is a clarity emerging, and it resonates with a greater quality of clear seeing, of being in a resonance of togetherness, of harmony with each other and with life. Now, the second piece that I want to speak to in this video is where I believe the great challenge to that actually is. With Uranus stationing direct right now, there's always that buildup of energy in that stationing point, especially for outer planets. The fear can very much be the sense of, I don't have what I need. Like there's something lacking, there's something that I'm gonna lose, or if I do this or if I join, I'm gonna be unsafe. We could even have the experience of seemingly being without the resources that we need, feeling that there's an actual sense of lack or deprivation in some essential way. When we believe that about our lives, or when we're afraid that certain decisions or choices or relationships or communities will take something from us, we're going to see the world out there as a threat. Okay, so Uranus and Taurus can very much be facing, right now with its stationing, facing the very places within us that we actually fear and want to protect. I'm not going to be safe. I have to protect and preserve and make sure I don't lose the security that I have. And that's contrary to the natural intelligence of this archetype. That's actually all about sharing and all about living and surviving in a way where we know that me resonating with my own individuality is something that's strong and stable inherently on its own. And that thus it resonates with this quality of abundance, and that there isn't something to fear. It's about living in a way where all the people, places, and things in our life organize themselves in a way that actually expands more growth. I think we often don't know what is in our greatest interest. There can be a strong sense of, nope, 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 I don't want to do that, not going there, I'm staying right here. Right? Be aware of that. Be aware of how strong that feels, those strong no's. I'm always really interested in the strong no's, right? Like, when is a strong no to be honored and respected? When is a strong no something to be pushed? And of course, it's never just like that simple one or the other. At the core, a strong no is just the experience of it. What it means might be many things, right? The strong no is that internal sense of there's a protection here. So what is that protection? If we think of children, there can be a strong no around brushing your teeth, right? Like a really strong no. But that strong no doesn't need to be honored, right? That's different than a child having a strong no around giving a hug. That's honored. You don't have to give a hug. We might have our strong no's and not really know the difference. We could have our strong yeses. A child might have a really strong yes around more screen time or eating sugar, but that isn't to be honored. So these strong feelings about yes and no and what we want to preserve and protect or move towards, it's all about what we believe will give us something and what we believe will protect us from the thing that we don't want to lose. To recognize that we often don't know what's in our best interest is to recognize we haven't quite learned to really ask and slow down and become more of an observer of our feelings, of our reactions. If life is inherently friendly and its natural evolutionary movement is towards harmony and wellness and thriving and a state that is inclusive and better for all people, then we can practice meeting those places of fear, of resistance, just with a little bit of space and curiosity. I don't have to do this. I don't have to make myself do this, but what's there? Right? What am I perceiving right now? What threat to my security am I aware of? And this is where our own projections and fears and perhaps the past traumas of, well, if I leave my shell and my security in my little cave, I'm going to lose something. I'm going to be hurt. I can't trust others. That might be bringing up that very trauma to be healed right now. So this is an important thing I feel to be thoughtful of at this time with such strong Aquarian energy, because fundamentally our life is shaking up. Things are moving and reorganizing, and that means change, and that means being uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean that's wrong or bad. create space to just sort of watch and witness. So let's take this to the next level here. Jupiter gestation direct, and this is the next dimension. Anywhere Jupiter goes, we have two things that tend to happen. Jupiter, being the magnifying glass, will expand and make larger whatever it is. So if it's a negative thought or belief, it'll really blow that up. If it's an opportunity for expansion and growth, it'll really blow that up. Sometimes it'll take something from us, to use that language, so that we can see what's there beyond that object focus. That might feel like we're losing something, but often, more often than not, it's just creating more space to see more of what's actually here. Jupiter is expansive. It makes us see. It helps us have vision. Brings clarity to recognize and see more clearly what's going on, and also brings us into awareness of our negative mindset. And then Uranus accelerates, right? Uranus accelerates the evolutionary process during strong Uranian times. Things might be happening very quickly, and that might be very threatening or scary. Okay, so there are two things that I want to say in regards to Jupiter moving to join Uranus, because now they're both direct, and they're both going to be joining each other. By far, this is the strongest part of the Uranus transit. It's been in Taurus for a while, but Jupiter and Uranus coming together is like the most significant, largest, loudest part of this transit during its entire duration. So I'll show you the transits in a moment. The two things to be thoughtful of are this. There can be an increased sense of fear and protection as Jupiter moves closer to Uranus. At the same time, there's a greater invitation for fundamental and radical change that happens just beyond the threshold of our protection and our fear. And yet this radical change may not be what we understand. It might mean letting go of what we've wanted or the security that we've thought we've needed. And again, referencing this end of the Capricorn season, we're not holding on to the status quo, my friends. This is not about recreating the past. Of all times, this is very much something new. So facing that strong resistance becomes an opportunity to really cultivate clear thinking. We never need to try to convince ourselves to believe something that we don't know to be true. That will never yield any positive results. But cultivating more of an observer mind and earnestly seeking to know the truth of anything. So the gift of Jupiter is it provides endless opportunities for greater realization if we're wanting that. The people, the books, the teachings, the information, the insights, it's all there and ripe for us. It's about our cultivation. Really, when you combine Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus together, it just really speaks this sort of hermit quality of a monk living on top of a mountain by themselves in deep spiritual contemplation, receiving immense insight. Now, we learn to cultivate that. Yes, creating space for ourselves, and that's actually an important part. We have bodies. How are we nurturing our physical, human, biological experience? What are the spaces that we're creating to support ourselves? How can community and other people support us in that way? But what we're learning to do is to bring that spaciousness into our lives. So we're really learning to see everything differently, not through the lens of the past, which oftentimes has so much fear and the repetitive patternings in it. I shared in my last video that, we just rearranged the studio, this desk is the new direction, and that's great. Like the experience of being in a new space, facing somewhere new, you're seeing something new, it moves the energy. And I think very often physical movements and change in our life, as unsettling and destabilizing as it might be, and sort of like, how will I like it? Will this be good? Will I bring the past with me? It's oftentimes an opportunity to consciously create the new. Okay, so let's move this forward. We'll do it week by week. They join each other literally in 3 months from now. This is at the end of April, at the very beginning of Taurus season, right? So for the next 3 months, we have this very strong movement of growing, building Uranian energy. And I'll say one more thing, which is the Jupiter restlessness. I need to make a change, right? Let's go somewhere else. That's different here, okay? Moving into change from a place of discontent is not what I'm speaking about here. This is being willing to sense into and feel into the evolutionary movement towards change and embracing it, even if it's scary and insecure. Often our discontent is actually just our protection and our resistance patterns, which invites really more stillness. Lastly, with all of this Aquarian energy, it's important to remember that we never do this alone. Like, this is not a solo journey. Our evolution is intricately interwoven. So the parts of our life that we're reorganizing and rethinking and recreating and working through, it's deeply connected to everyone and everything. As we each actualize and find more clarity, we walk past it we never thought we would walk before. And that opens up doorways for so many other people. We always walk each other home. We always evolve together because we're willing to free each other as we free ourselves from the known, from the fear, from the past. But sometimes that's scary, and that's okay, because life isn't about being comfortable. Life is about evolution. Thank you all for watching. The advanced practice classes are a new structure that I've created. These are for students that are already practiced or studied in the basics of evolutionary astrology. We get together every week to practice and study anything related to the natal chart and evolutionary astrology, with occasional live volunteers coming in. These topics are student requested, and enrollment is on a monthly subscription basis. Join anytime, cancel anytime. Our very first class is this Wednesday, 9 o'clock a.m. Pacific. So if you want to join these classes for eligible students only, check it out in the description below.